Hey, it's Amy Scott Grant. They call me the spiritual ass kicker, and I'm back to talk to you about compartmentalized conversations. Now, in part one, I went into like what these are and why they're happening and where they're happening and how they affect you. And essentially, it's when you can't go there on certain topics with certain people, right? If you have one or two of these in your life, it may not be a big deal. But if you have a lot of these, it starts to feel very self-limiting, and you sort of feel like you're being boxed into, well, I can only talk about kids with this person, and I can only talk about the weather with that person, and I can only talk about, this one shared topic with this other person. Starts to feel really constrictive, right? And I invited you at the end of the last video to take a look at where these kind of conversations are happening in your life and how that actually makes you feel to know that's going on. So in this quick video, I want to talk to you about what your options are. What can you do about it if you find like there's way too many compartmentalized conversations going on in your life? The first thing you can do is look at, is it satisfying or not? Okay, there might be some people in your life. For example, I can tell you, I have a couple of people in my life where we really just have like sort of one big thing in common. And this person, I don't even think they know what I do for a living. Honestly, like it's just never come up because we have this one other thing in common. And that's pretty much what the conversation always revolves around. But I typically only interact with that person around that common thread. It's not like I see them all the time, they're in my life constantly, and I feel super limited by them. It's just kind of like, well, we have this one thing in common, and so when we're at those types of events, we see each other and it's fine, right? And I'm also not saying you're going to have like these life-altering conversations with every single person in your life. If you have kids, you probably have to interact with your child's teacher to some degree. It does not mean you're going to be BFFs or that you're going to pour out your philosophical views of life and eternity and the cosmos to this person, right? You may develop that kind of friendship with them, and that would be awesome. But more than likely, you're probably going to stick to talking about things related to school and your child's performance in school and any behavioral problems your child's having at school. That's the reality of it. Okay. And same thing with bosses, like I'm not saying you're going to sit around and talk politics with your boss or that you'd even want to, right? Because that's a different type of relationship. And it's like a necessary relationship as long as you're in that particular job or career. But there are some things you can do with the voluntary relationships in your life. In other words, people that you see socially. Okay, because work relationships, that's kind of different, right? There may be a certain culture at your place of business, and so maybe people generally don't talk about certain things, whatever. But that doesn't mean you can't make close friends at work that share your deep and personal interests. Okay, so that's the first thing you can do is ask yourself, like, is this satisfying? Okay, because if you have a person in your life that you have compartmentalized conversations with, but you both get satisfaction out of those interactions, then there's probably nothing to change there. So is it satisfying? Second thing is like, is it serving a purpose, right? A relationship with your boss is serving a purpose. This is someone that you need to work well with, you need to get along well with. So if it feels compartmentalized, that's probably okay because this is where you work and this is your place of business. So you don't need to be necessarily having like a life-altering relationship with your boss. In fact, most people would probably not recommend it, depending on what kind of job you have, right? Okay, so is it satisfying? Is it serving a purpose? Because if it is, then, and if it's meeting those needs, then there's probably nothing to change. But if you examined some of these compartmentalized conversation situations from last video and you're like, wow, this is like not sad. This is leaving me feel ick after interacting with this person because I have to keep it light or have to keep it to small talk. Like, I don't want to have small talk. Personally, I get you. I hate small talk. Freaking hate it. Right? So I'd much rather like have deep philosophical conversations than talk about, what someone saw in the news or some TV show that just came out. Boring, right? I can only tolerate so much of that. And by the way, I have a video I'm putting together for you too on like how to get out of conversations without looking like a total biatch. So you'll appreciate that one if you're like me and you really don't care for small talk. Like if it's not going somewhere quickly, bye-bye, I'm moving on. Okay, so what else can you do? Well, you can, if this may or may not be a person that you can eliminate from your life. Like, do you still want this person in your life? Is it still like contributing to your life for the two of you to have this connection? And if not, then you might just kind of look at phasing that out. Or is there an opportunity to decrease the amount of communication you have with this person? If you feel very limited, there's not much you can talk about with them, and what's left to talk about doesn't feel satisfying and isn't serving a purpose, then can you connect with them less? Can you interact with them less so that you're reducing the amount of time that you have to be in this box and be really limited in your in who you can be around this person? You can push the edges. Now, this is definitely a risky option, but it's something that you can do, because sometimes we don't go there with a person because we think we know how that conversation's going to go. But a lot of times we're incorrect about that, right? Oh my God, ask anybody who's like ever come out. Okay? That they're certainly the people that they've come out to where they're like, yeah, that was as bad as I thought it was going to be, or it was worse. But in most cases, it's like, wow, that did not at all go like I expected it to go. Sometimes the people they think are going to be most accepting are the ones who are like most shocked, and the ones that they are really worried about telling end up being the ones that are like, yeah, okay, so what? Good for you. I mean, I've known for like ever, right? So we don't always, sometimes what we anticipate is going to be the outcome isn't going to be the outcome at all. So you can try and like push those edges and see what happens. If you do that, I would highly recommend that you stay calm and collected. Remember to ground yourself when this happens. Now, I also would not recommend doing this with anyone who is like narcissistic, bipolar, like really people that are going to end up manipulating or baiting. If you have a known history with this person that you end up getting gaslighted, or, it's like, it's a full-blown brawl by the end of the conversation, then I wouldn't recommend pushing those edges. But if it's like, you're into crystals and metaphysical stuff and you think your neighbor is pretty straight-laced, it wouldn't hurt to like throw out a little something, like maybe wear a big crystal necklace around them, whatever. You might be shocked. They might be like, oh my God, that's so pretty. Is that Larimer? I've heard that's the lost stone of Atlantis, which, if you haven't read Pendulum, Mojo, or maybe it was 1, 2, 3 Clarity. In one of those books, I tell you that's how I met a really good friend of mine. I was wearing a Larimer ring. She commented on it. So the other thing you could do is focus and visualize bringing more people into your life that are like-minded, right? That are open to discussing the kinds of things that you want to talk about, the kinds of things that are important to you. And this can help you get more opportunities to expand your social circle with people who are more accepting of who you really are, as opposed to just meeting more people who are kind of already like the people that you already know, that you don't feel you can totally be yourself in. So there are some good options for you. Hey, if you have more ideas, post a comment below, share this video if you think it's helpful. That would be awesome. And I will see you next time.